Let's check in with Kristen Gilbert of Options for Sexual Health. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah, give us your take of the Ontario plan to revamp sexual education.
I'm excited about it. I remember a few years ago when their curriculum, McGuinty got cold feet and ditched the whole curriculum. I had a look at it then and thought, we're already doing better than that in BC, but I'm excited that Ontario is finally getting the comprehensive sex ed that those students deserve.
I was going to bring it back to British Columbia here. We already do a fairly decent job of educating our children in this province.
Yeah, we do. We have for about a generation now. That's thanks to mostly an educator by the name of Meg Hickling, who you might know. She has the Order of Canada, and she's been educating kids in BC for a long time now. Because of her good work and the work at Options for Sexual Health that we do and other educators around the province, we've had really complex and comprehensive sex ed from the age of kindergarten all the way through to the end of grade 12 in this country.
But there are some things that we could do better. I know you're concerned about the specifics, specific issues. Right now, it's sort of a very general learning environment.
That's totally true. So I'm a sexual health educator, so I have a look at what we call the learning outcomes for every grade. So the learning outcomes are set by the BC Ministry of Education, and they say what students are supposed to learn at which stages. And they're very, very general. So for example, they might say that students should learn about healthy sexual decision-making, and I'll interpret that to mean a whole host of things that students need to learn. They need to learn how to consent and how to say no. They also need to know about the workings of their bodies and how to access birth control and information from community leaders. But someone else might interpret that to mean that students just need to learn how to be abstinent. So there's a range of interpretations. And one of the benefits of the Ontario curriculum is they do get quite specific. And so that helps educators and leads them in the direction that they need to be going.
And we don't have any training necessarily for teachers in this province, and that surely is a problem.
It is. I think if you ask any teacher how many minutes or hours they spent learning how to teach sex ed, almost all of them will tell you that no time was spent in their pre-service learning how to teach sex ed. Unfortunately, the ministry also doesn't offer any amount of time or funding for teachers to learn how to teach the subject. Different school boards do take that on, like the Vancouver School Board, for example, is really strong in this area. And I don't know if you know this, but starting in September, PE teachers are expected to cover this curriculum in BC, and no training has been offered to them. Luckily, though, in Ontario, Premier Wynne has already said that she guarantees that teachers will be getting pre-service training so they'll know how to meet these outcomes in Ontario.
With no pre-service training, how is it that BC teachers have done such a good job?
Yeah, well, it's thanks to independent sexual health educators like those of us at OPT, as well as Salima Noon is another excellent independent educator. And of course, there's always teachers who love this area of work. So they find excellence in their own training. And as I mentioned, some school boards are strong in this area, and the BC Teachers Federation has always been behind their teachers in encouraging them to get the training that they need.
There will be parents who, in Ontario, we've seen the news stories already today, and in British Columbia, I'm sure there are parents as well that would rather not have teachers discussing sexual health with their children. Is that still an issue?
Well, there's two things that I want to say about this, Aaron. The truth is that when I ask in a grade 8 class, how many of you are talking about these issues at home, I get 0 hands in the air. So while I completely agree that parents are the most important and most valuable educators for young people when it comes to sex and sexual health, the truth is it's just not happening at home. People my age, I'm 45, we didn't get very good education in the school system as we were growing up. So a lot of us feel like we don't have a lot of skills in this area. I often hear repeated that people would rather take care of this education at home, but what we know from really good research that's done in Ontario from CCAN, which is the Sex Information and Education Council of Canada, they've found over the years that more than 90% of parents, and that includes parents in Ontario and BC, support having comprehensive sex ed in the schools. So I think the people who are loudly saying they'd rather do it at home, first of all, probably aren't doing it at home, and second of all, they're not reflecting the overwhelming percentage perspective of parents.
No, it's an uncomfortable topic for many of us to discuss, and in some cases it's better to have an expert deal with it, or in most cases it's probably better to have an expert deal with it.
Well, I take advantage of that all the time. After I teach a puberty class, I'll send the kids home and say, now you probably know a lot more than your parents. Why don't you ease them into this and teach them a little bit of the stuff you learned today? I really think kids these days, there's a shift, a generational shift happening, and as they become parents, they'll have a lot more ease and facility with this subject than maybe you and I ever would.
And lastly here, we're kind of up against the clock. Just with the dramatic changes in society right now, this is a topic that has never been more important. And I know there's some serious issues in BC classrooms right now. How do you make sure that all of that is represented in the classroom?
Well, there just never is enough time, to be honest with you. We need to make sure that when students leave our classroom, that they know of the resources that are available to them. So there's a really great resource line that we run called the 1-800-SEX-SENSE line, where anyone can call, children and adults, with questions. So things that we're not able to cover in the classroom, we're hoping that the classroom teacher follows up, that family members like parents and caregivers follow up, and we're hoping that students know that all around them in British Columbia are excellent resources.
All right, we got to leave it there. Kristen Gilbert, I want to thank you for your time. She's with the Options for Sexual Health. Good night.
Good night.